here at X'10 and that they're closing down, but I'm still managed to catch Matt, community manager from Bethesda. And behind us is Fallout New Vegas, developed by Obsidian.
Obsidian out in California, yep.
And it's not a true sequel, it's not Fallout 4, it's more of a side story, right?
We don't call it Fallout 4. It does take place after the events of Fallout 3, about 4 years after the fact, and it's an all-new adventure, same, you can expect, you can play 100 hours if you want. I guess to your question, it would be similar to, say, a GTA Vice City or San Andreas. It's another huge game, but we're not calling it Fallout 4, that's correct.
Now, with Obsidian at the controls, did they have pretty much free reign to do what they wished with the property?
They originally pitched the idea to us a couple of years ago, and immediately guys on our team, including the guys at Bethesda Game Studios, talked with them, and they were like, wow, that's a great idea, we can go with that. We do have producers at Bethesda that interact with the Obsidian guys on the community level. I talk to them pretty regularly. So we keep a constant communication, but most, I can't even think of an instance where it hasn't been the case, but, the communication's been great, what they've been doing. We love the idea from the start. The first time I heard you start the game getting shot in the head and then getting buried alive, I was like, that's genius.
Now, Obsidian, if people don't know, is composed of some people who worked on the original Fallout games, and one of the complaints that, there was two groups of people who complained about Fallout 3. There were some of those hardcore Fallout fanatics who said Fallout wasn't Fallout, it wasn't RPG enough. And then the other end of the spectrum, there was people who said, oh, the shooting mechanics weren't really that first-person shooter, and they were disappointed. How has it been? Has New Vegas improved the shooting and the RPG at the same time?
Well, I mean, we look at all the feedback that we get from the community. Both, as a community manager, that's important to me. But Obsidian was pretty good about looking at what people were saying as well, and I think they answered a lot of the things that the hardcore crowd wanted to see. For instance, one thing I always saw pre-release is, well, why isn't ammo going to be weighted? So they made that an option in hardcore mode, where the ammo in your inventory is weighted. You also have, you brought up the part about the first-person shooter. The guys at Obsidian did a great job adding iron sights to rifles, so you're aiming down, through the sights, and it works great. If you crouch, it works even better. It's still Fallout, so there's RPG elements, obviously, and so your gun skill is still going to play a factor into that. But they did want to make it so if somebody wasn't crazy about that, if they just wanted to play as a shooter, and obviously we want to see however people want to play it. We're happy that they enjoy the game. The iron sights will make that experience more enjoyable for those folks.
So what are there any other major changes to the mechanics over Fallout 3, or is it still basically the same?
I mean, there's a number of things that you'll notice in the game. Hardcore mode has other features like needing to drink water. You need to, if you've got a crippled arm, your arm's crippled, or you have radiation. The healing effects for using Radaway and stim packs heal over time, so that's something. Drinking water, I said that already. We've got weapon mods. That was something that the community, we posted on our Bethesda blog, this awesome mod with all these different, scopes you add to weapons and ammo clips, stuff like that. And Obsidian thought that was a really cool idea, so they went ahead and implemented something like that into the game.
Now, one of the other things about Fallout 3 is, amazing game, 100 hours of gameplay, but towards the end, you sometimes felt maybe some of the missions got repetitive, or the environments were like a little samey. In that there was a lot of content, but maybe not as much variety. It looks like New Vegas has a little bit more of the kind of places that you can,
Well, I think with both teams, what they try to really focus on is getting as much stuff in the world, but at the same time making it, a desolate, post-apocalyptic game. New Vegas, the bombs didn't directly hit the area, so it's got a little more life to it. The strip is an active strip, whereas the Capital Wasteland, that was one of the primary targets. It's Washington D.C. in the United States, so why wouldn't you drop a bomb there? Except for the fact that I live there. So, you know, a lot of those areas are desolate areas that you don't want to have, you know, you want to have that sense of, you know, being alone as you're going through the wasteland. Something that I think, you know, fans from the first Fallout games would say is, you know, a really cool feel, the eerie vibe of, you know, I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
Obsidian's well known story-wise for their great writing, and also that idea of moral choice, you know, options in the story that really take the story in a completely different direction.
Sure.
Fallout 3 did have the different endings, and some, but it wasn't as much branching. It's just New Vegas have a lot more.
Well, I think with Fallout 3, if you go through the, I mean, there was a lot of permutations of the endings. At the end of the day, there was only, I think it was something like 4 or 5 core endings, but then like variations based on that. I can't remember the exact numbers. But with New Vegas, one thing that we have is we have 3 major factions in the game: Mr. House, who runs the Strip, the California New Republic, and Caesar's Legion. And the decisions you make, you know, working with or against, or, you know, not at all with those factions, are going to have a huge impact on how the story ends. On top of that, I mean, almost any place you go, you know, whether you start at Good Springs, where you're fighting against the Powder Gangers, those guys are both considered factions. So, you know, the decisions you make with all the different factions in all the different areas of the wasteland have a huge impact on the game.
Another thing I want to ask about is voice cast. You guys recently announced this pretty amazing lineup.
Yeah.
How did you pull together such a huge team of talent?
Well, I mean, we have agencies we go to for that sort of thing, but I mean, I'm sure you've heard the Matthew Perry story at this point. You know, he was on Ellen and Jimmy Fallon talking about his wrist injury he got while playing Fallout 3, and he was going on those shows like signing copies of the game and saying, hey, I didn't work on this game, but I think it's awesome, so you should play it. So when I saw that stuff, you know, I talked to people at my office, and eventually I guess it worked out that was a good networking connection that, you know, he talked about the game. We were like, oh, we'd love to have him aboard. Other folks like Wayne Newton, you know, it's Las Vegas, so why wouldn't you have Wayne Newton in a game that takes place in Las Vegas? And, you know, the other guys, you know, we just reached out to that we thought were a really good fit. Felicia Day was somebody that I know they were considering all along. Danny Trejo, Zach Levi, or is that his name? Yes. Zach Levi reached out to us at one point. So, you know, we keep an eye out for, you know, talent that we'd like to bring on.
Coming out, and what's the date again? October
19th.
That's pretty set in stone.
Yes. PlayStation 3, PC, and 360.
DLC?
Right now we're just working on getting the game done. That's our focus. We have no plans right now for DLC. If that changes, we'll let everybody know.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us. Well, I'm looking forward to putting another few weeks of my life away into this game.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to the show.
It's good to see people still making games that really take a while to finish, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.